The transport vessel shuddered as it dropped from hyperspace, and Captain Lisa Morgan knew something was wrong before the alarms even started screaming. Her crew of 12 had been hauling medical supplies to the outer colonies for 6 months straight, without incident, but today felt different in a way she could not explain. The screens flickered and died, leaving only emergency lighting casting red shadows across the bridge, and her co-pilot Jake turned to her with wide eyes that reflected her own growing fear. They were being pulled toward something massive. Lisa had heard stories about the Vakrin Empire and their habit of collecting specimens from primitive species, but she never thought humans would be interesting enough to warrant their attention, since Earth had only achieved faster than light travel 3 years ago. The ship groaned as invisible forces dragged them toward a structure so enormous it blotted out the stars, and Lisa felt her stomach drop when she realized they were heading straight into a docking bay that could have swallowed a dozen vessels their size. Gravity returned with a thump that knocked everyone against their restraints, and then there was silence so complete it felt like being buried alive. Lisa unstrapped herself and looked at her crew, seeing the same question on every face, but before anyone could speak, the main door began to open with a hiss that made her heart race. 3 figures stepped through, and Lisa had to remind herself to breathe. They were tall and moved with a grace that seemed impossible for beings their size, and their skin had a faint blue luminescence that pulsed gently like a second heartbeat visible through their flesh. The one in front wore armor that looked grown rather than forged, and her eyes were entirely black, with no visible iris or pupil. Yet Lisa could feel the weight of that gaze, as if it could see straight through her. The alien woman tilted her head, studying Lisa with an expression that might have been curiosity or amusement, and when she spoke her voice came out in perfect English, though her mouth barely moved. "You are the leader of this vessel." It was not a question, and Lisa found herself nodding before she could think better of it, and the alien stepped closer until Lisa had to crane her neck back to maintain eye contact. "I am Commander Zara of the Vakrin 3rd Fleet, and you have entered restricted space." Lisa wanted to protest that their navigation systems had shown this sector as empty, but the words died in her throat when Zara reached out with one long-fingered hand and touched her shoulder. The contact sent a shock through Lisa's entire body, not painful but overwhelming. Like every nerve had suddenly woken up at once, and she gasped as images flooded her mind. She saw Earth from orbit, watched humanity's first stumbling steps into the galaxy, and felt a crushing weight of sadness that did not belong to her. Zara withdrew her hand, and Lisa swayed, catching herself on the back of her chair, while her crew moved forward to support her, but the commander held up one hand, stopping them without a word. "Your species should not be here yet." And the Vakrin woman said softly, and there was something in her tone that made Lisa think of regret, though she could not imagine why. "We are going to be destroyed in 3 cycles, and you were supposed to help rebuild after we are gone." The words made no sense, and Lisa shook her head, trying to clear the fog that had settled over her thoughts, but Zara was already turning to leave, gesturing for her companions to follow. "Wait." Lisa called out and surprised herself with the strength in her voice. "And what do you mean destroyed, and who is supposed to destroy you?" Zara paused in the doorway and looked back over her shoulder, and for just a moment Lisa saw something ancient and tired in those black eyes. "The Kreven are coming, and they do not negotiate or take prisoners, and they consume everything in their path, and we have held them back for 10,000 years, but our strength is finally failing." Lisa felt ice spread through her chest and asked the only question that mattered. "Then why did you stop us, and why not let us go?" "Because," Zara said, and something that might have been a smile touched her lips, "and I wanted to see if the stories about humans were true." She left before Lisa could ask what stories, and the door sealed behind her, leaving the crew alone in their crippled ship with more questions than answers. 2 days passed in a cell that was more comfortable than it had any right to be, and Lisa spent the time trying to understand what was happening. The Vakrin brought food that was surprisingly edible, and never spoke except to ensure everyone was healthy, and through the transparent wall, Lisa could see other ships docked nearby, all of them clearly from different species. On the 3rd day, Zara returned alone and gestured for Lisa to follow. They walked through corridors that seemed to shift and breathe around them, and Lisa realized the entire station was alive in some way she could not comprehend, and eventually they reached a chamber with a view that stole her breath. Thousands of ships filled the void beyond the station, and they ranged from small fighters to dreadnoughts that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built, and all of them bore the same markings as Zara's armor. "This is the last fleet of the Vakran Empire," and Zara said quietly, "and in 3 days we make our final stand against an enemy that has already consumed half the galaxy." Lisa turned to face her and asked, "Why are you telling me this?" Because Zara met her eyes, and something in that alien gaze was achingly human. "And I have been fighting for 300 years, and I am tired, and I wanted to talk to someone who does not carry the weight of our dying civilization." 300 years, Lisa repeated numbly. "And how is that possible?" "We live long lives," Zara said with a shrug that seemed almost casual, "and I was young when the war began, and now I am not, and I have seen every member of my family die in battle, and I cannot remember what peace feels like anymore." Lisa felt an unexpected surge of sympathy and asked, "What will happen to us?" "You will be released before the battle begins," Zara said, "and there are automated beacons that will guide you back to human space, and you will warn your people about the Kraven and tell them to prepare, because if we fail, they will reach Earth within your lifetime." "And if you win?" Lisa asked, though she already knew the answer. "We will not win," and Zara said simply, "and we are buying time and nothing more. And perhaps your species will succeed where we failed, and perhaps you will find a way to stop them that we could not discover in 10 millennia of trying." Lisa wanted to argue, wanted to offer help or comfort, but what could humanity possibly do against an enemy that had brought the mighty Vakran to their knees? Instead, she asked, "Why do you think we can succeed where you failed?" Because Zara said, and for the first time Lisa saw her smile properly, revealing teeth that were sharp, but somehow still gentle. "And humans are dangerous in ways we never were, and you are stubborn and creative, and you refuse to accept defeat even when logic says you should surrender." She turned to look out at the fleet and continued, "We Vakran are ancient and powerful, but we became set in our ways and we forgot how to adapt, and the Kraven learned to counter everything we could do. And you are young and foolish, and that might be exactly what the galaxy needs." Lisa stood beside her in silence for a long moment, watching the ships move through space in patterns that looked almost like a dance. And finally she asked, "What happens now?" "Now," Zara said, "and I take you back to your crew, and tomorrow you leave, and you go home and you tell your people everything, and you prepare them for what is coming." "And you?" Lisa asked quietly. "I will die with my fleet," and Zara said without emotion, "and I will take as many Kraven with me as possible, and I will buy your species a few more years to grow strong." Lisa felt tears burning in her eyes and reached out to touch Zara's arm, and the commander looked down at her in surprise, as if physical comfort was something she had forgotten existed. "I wish we had more time," Lisa said, "and maybe we could have been friends." Zara placed her hand over Lisa's and said, "Perhaps in another life, but not this one. And this one belongs to duty and sacrifice and the hope that someone somewhere will remember that we tried." They stood together watching the fleet prepare for battle, and Lisa knew she would carry this moment with her for the rest of her life, and she would tell Earth about the Vakran and their sacrifice, and humanity would prepare for the coming storm. Because that was what humans did, and they survived and they adapted and they refused to quit, even when the universe itself seemed determined to crush them. The next morning, Lisa and her crew were escorted back to their ship, and Zara stood at the airlock as they prepared to depart, and Lisa wanted to say something meaningful, but words felt inadequate. "Thank you," Zara said instead, "and for reminding me why we fight." Lisa nodded, unable to trust her voice, and the airlock sealed and their ship detached, and as they accelerated away, she watched the Vakran fleet grow smaller until it was just a cluster of lights against the darkness. 3 days later, they received a transmission, and automated and brief. The Vakran Third Fleet had engaged the Kraven, and the battle had lasted 18 hours, and when it ended, there were no Vakran ships left, but the Kraven advance had been delayed by an estimated 7 years. Lisa sat in her captain's chair and wept for a warrior she had known for only a few days, and then she set course for Earth, because Zara had bought them time, and she would not waste it.